I carried 9 pregnancies for my husband and gave birth to 5 sons. Over 30 years, the toll of constant toil left me with a body full of ailments. Finally, after my youngest grandson started elementary school and my youngest son began his career, I was able to lay down my heavy burdens. I packed my bags and went to the base where my husband was stationed, ready to spend our remaining years together in peace. Little did I know, my husband had another family here. I saw my husband, who had sworn I was the only one in his heart, holding another woman's hand with utter devotion. I saw the children I had raised with my own hands gathered around them, calling them mom and dad, and my precious grandson was hugging another elderly woman, saying she was his only grandma. I was so furious I had a stroke on the spot, and my children didn't even come to see me, they just gave up on treatment. Before I drew my last breath, I heard them say, "That old bastard is finally dead." When I opened my eyes again, I was back in the 70s. I was back on the day my husband told me to bear him another child. Xiuhua, give me a daughter. My husband, Li Taixing, roughly shoved his hand under my blouse, his face urgent as he pressed close to my ear. My body jolted, and a full-body shudder ran through me. The steady breathing of my 4 sons drifted over from beside me, and I realized I had truly been reborn. I was still young then. My hair not yet turned white from the wear and tear of sons and grandsons, my back not yet bent and twisted. I pulled Li Taixing's hand away and turned my back to him. "If you want more children, go find someone else to have them. I can't bear them, and I can't raise them." Li Taixing's face darkened in the weak candlelight, etched with impatience. "Have you lost your mind? I only come back once every few months, and this is how you treat me?" Without another word, he roughly turned my body over and heedlessly climbed on top of me. I stared at him with disgust, my eyes utterly devoid of emotion. At that time, Li Taixing was still a junior technician at the base. He couldn't stand the thought of being left behind. Every time he came home, he'd sigh and complain to me, saying how he envied those who got promoted and could bring their families to live with them at the base, having the whole family together. In my past life, whenever he took out his work frustrations on me, I endured it in silence. I ended up having 4 abortions because of it, yet, even then, I comforted him. In the end, afraid he might do something drastic, I had no choice but to use my parents' military commendation medals to secure him 3 consecutive promotions. But after his promotion, he came home less and less. He never mentioned bringing me and the children to the base again. Whenever I brought it up, he'd cut me off impatiently, saying the base was too busy and having us there would distract him from his work. Eventually, I stopped asking. I raised all 5 children alone, which left me with a body full of ailments. If my memory serves me right, it was tonight that our 5th child was conceived. The thought sent a chill down my spine. I poured the most effort into our 5th child, frail from birth. I fed him spoonful by spoonful. I stayed by his side all the way through high school, delivering meals by day, working night shifts, never daring to slack off for a moment. Yet, in the end, it was that same 5th child who personally removed my oxygen mask. Li Taixing, seeing I didn't speak, took my silence for consent. His stubbly face came at mine, and a wave of nausea hit me. I shoved him away and scrambled off the bed, given a second chance at life, and with those 4 ungrateful wretches already beyond saving, there was no need for the unborn 5th one to ever see the light of day. In the end, I made do and spent the night on the makeshift bed outside. The father and his 5 sons slept soundly in their room until the sun was high in the sky. I was washing the dishes after breakfast when my eldest son shuffled towards me, rubbing his bleary eyes. My eldest son, Li Dong, is 14 this year and already stands a head taller than me. In my past life, his grades plummeted due to a teenage romance. To help him refocus, I accompanied him to and from school every day. He eventually got into Tsinghua University, became a top student in the computer science department, and turned out to be the most successful of my 5 sons. I've always hated myself for breaking him and his first love apart. I told him that forcing him to go to grad school was a waste of time, which led to his first love marrying someone else and starting a family. It became the regret of my life. This resentment lasted until my dying breath. I heard him clearly, urging his brothers to give up on treating me, calling me a useless old burden who should die already and be reborn. "Mom, where's the food?" I looked at Li Dong's cold, indifferent face and, right in front of him, through the half-eaten steamed bun I was holding into the pigsty. "No food left. If you want to eat, make it yourself." Back then, to let him focus on his studies, I never let him step foot in the kitchen. Other kids were helping cook by age 7 or 8. And doing farm work like transplanting rice seedlings and harvesting not long after. He never had to lift a finger. Now it's time for him to learn from those other kids." Li Dong stared at me in astonishment, clearly not expecting that I, who had always indulged his every whim, would tell him to cook for himself. He was so shocked he was speechless for a long moment. In a past life, if I saw him looking like this, I would have asked if something was bothering him, if he was upset. And I would have done everything in my power to cheer him up, but not this time. Meals don't cook themselves, and clothes don't wash themselves. In this life, if he wants to date, he can date. If he doesn't want to study, he doesn't have to. I won't interfere one bit. Seeing I was serious, Li Dong raised his voice and shouted for Li Taixing, who was in the other room, "Dad, come quick. Mom would rather feed the steamed buns to the pigs than give them to me. You need to come and deal with her." Hearing that, a chill ran through me. That son of mine, my own flesh and blood, does nothing but threaten to have his father come and deal with me. I curse the heavens for not letting me be reborn before I gave birth to him. If I had the chance, I'd rather that ungrateful wretch had never been born. Li Taixing naturally didn't believe a word Li Dong said. He sauntered over in just his underwear. But the sight of the completely empty dining table instantly sent him into a rage. He grabbed a nearby broom and swung it at me. "Qin Xiuhua, are you out of your goddamn mind? No breakfast, no porridge, and you have the nerve to feed the pigs? I swear to God, I'll beat you to death." In my past life, Li Taixing also had abusive tendencies. It was only after I helped him get that big promotion and he came home less often that I finally had some peace for a few years. Before that, I was always covered in bruises every time he returned. I instinctively tried to dodge, but my second and third sons blocked my path. I risked my life bringing these two children into the world. When I was giving birth to the second one, I had a difficult labor and was in agony for a full day and night. Li Taixing said he was tied up with work at the base and couldn't get away. I was all alone at the hospital. After the baby was finally born, I passed out cold. When I was pregnant with my third child, I developed severe gestational hypertension. My heart would race uncontrollably every day. The doctors repeatedly advised me to terminate the pregnancy, but I couldn't bear the thought of losing the little life I felt moving inside me. I took the risk and had a C-section, barely snatching my own life back from the jaws of death. Because of that harrowing experience, I cherished these two children like precious treasures. I gave them whatever they wanted. Having gone through the rebellious phase with my eldest, I didn't force these two to continue their studies when they showed no interest in school. I used all my savings to send them to a technical school to learn a trade. After they graduated, I insisted they hand over a portion of their salary to me each month. In the end, I invested every last penny of that money to help them start their own factory. The two of them later became renowned technical experts and were even awarded the National First Class Artisan Medal, yet they blame me for robbing them of their prime years, saying I let them waste their studies and ruined their chance to get into Tsinghua or Peking University and land a cushy office job like their eldest brother. To this day, I can still picture the two of them, the very picture of filial piety, massaging the shoulders and legs of the women at Li Taixing's base. "Mom, where do you think you're going? This is all your fault. We're starving to death and you're trying to run off." "Exactly, you haven't cooked. Yesterday's laundry is still dirty. You don't earn any money. You don't do any housework. You just sit around at home all day eating for free." The words of my second and third sons felt like buckets of ice water being poured over my heart. The two children were the very picture of a pair of ungrateful, uncivilized wretches. They clung desperately to my legs, refusing to let go, while Li Taixing struck me again and again with his broom. I was trembling all over with rage. Shoving them aside, I grabbed the nearby shovel and pressed it against Li Taixing's throat. "Li Taixing, hit me one more time, I dare you." Li Taixing froze for a split second, then in the next instant, he snatched the shovel and seized my hair. He stomped my face into the ground, and a torrent of slaps rained down upon me. My face was swollen from the slaps in no time. "You bitch, you've got some nerve now. Looks like you need a beating every few days or you'll start tearing the roof off. You wouldn't let me touch you yesterday, and now you're not making us breakfast today. Are you trying to start a rebellion? I swear I'll beat you to death today, you worthless piece of shit." As he said this, he took off his slipper and started whipping me with it furiously. My eyes were swollen and bruised from the beating, and my gaze fell on the youngest, my fourth child. "Xiangzi, run and get help, go now, or he's going to beat me to death." As I watched him scamper out, a flicker of warmth stirred in my heart. I suppose a mother always has a soft spot for her youngest. I'd always save the best treats and toys for him, and every night, I'd hold him as he fell asleep. But that warm feeling was fleeting, vanishing as abruptly as it had come. Lao Si ran to the courtyard gate, stopped in his tracks. and shut the gate directly. He looked at me with an innocent, beaming smile. Dad says he found us a new mom. She's rich and pretty, and she'll buy me lots of toys. If I kill you, I'll get my new mom. I froze completely. I never imagined that the 4 children I devoted my entire life to raising, pouring my heart and soul into them, would each be so cold and indifferent to me. Seeing that I had given up resisting, Li Taixing also dropped the slipper in his hand. He pulled me to my feet, then put on a show of looking full of remorse. I'm so sorry, honey. I just lost my head in a moment of anger. Are you okay? I'm a monster. I'm a monster. As he said this, he began slapping his own face. He would always do this after hitting me, and yet, I always fell for it. I naively believed he was like an emotionally unstable child who needed my salvation, but this time, I could clearly see the calculation in the glint of his eye, instead of stopping him or forgiving him like I used to. I slapped him hard across the face. This is how you apologize. Li Taixing was stunned by the blow. By the time he came to his senses, I was already back in my room, packing my things. 15 years of marriage, 15 years of running this household, yet so little of it truly feels like mine. In this whole house, everything belongs to either the kids or Li Taixing. My own clothes don't even fill a single duffel bag. Staring at my own swollen, red face, I walked out of the room. Li Taixing started laughing to himself. Oh, feeling brave enough to run away, are we? Take a good look at yourself in the mirror. You've had 4 children. Who on earth would want you now? Go make me a couple of decent dishes right now, and wash my shoes while you're at it. Do that, and I'll pretend today never happened. You'll still be Li Taixing's wife, and the children's mother. I glanced at the children, each absorbed in their own tasks, and a wave of bleak sorrow washed over me. They were just as convinced as Li Taixing, convinced I was only putting on a show, convinced I would never actually leave this home. The eldest even said impatiently, enough already. At your age, what are you even trying to prove? If word gets out, aren't you embarrassed? I certainly am. The other children chimed in with dissatisfaction. Exactly, we're starving, and you still won't cook. You only care about getting a free meal for yourself, with no regard for whether we live or die. My nose stung with the threat of tears, even having witnessed their cold indifference in a past life. Hearing such callous words from the child I had raised with all my heart still cut deep, I looked down at my injuries, cradled my aching cheek, and left without a single word. A husband like this, children like this, I don't want any of it anymore. I never expected Li Taixing to have the gall to come chasing after me. He even brought a whole crowd of villagers with him. Come and see. Qin Xiuhua's been fooling around, and now she's trying to ditch me to run off with someone else. In a remote village, gossip is never in short supply. Hearing the commotion, everyone in the village, men, women, old, and young, gathered around, including my own 4 strapping sons. Qin Xiuhua. You better explain yourself. Which bastard are you running off with, abandoning your husband and child? He held on to me tightly, not letting go, his face a mask of pure malice. My God, who would have thought? How could she be that kind of person? Ha, what do you expect? Just look at the pair on her. Born a slut, that one. The people Li Taixing brought with him started talking over each other, each comment more vicious than the last. Furious, I clenched my fist and slapped him across the face. Li Taixing, you've been fooling around with someone else at the base for ages. You come home and beat me, and now you have the nerve to turn this around on me. Have you no shame? Humiliated by the public slap, Li Taixing lost his temper and started shoving and hitting me again. Everyone was buzzing with gossip. An elderly woman from the village, unable to stand by and watch, stepped in to break up the fight. But she accidentally caught sight of the wound beneath my sleeve, gently rolling up my sleeve. She saw my arm covered in fresh and old scars. Looking at my swollen, reddened face, her heart ached for me, and she patted my shoulder. Xiuhua, what on earth happened to you? The sudden concern from a stranger made my tears instantly stream down my face, but before I could even explain, my 4 children spoke up first. My mom was cheating at home, that's why my dad hit her. I saw it too. Mom often brings strange uncles home to sleep when Dad is away at the base. Mom, I don't know anything. Please don't hit me. Mom, that uncle last time promised to buy me a toy if I kept quiet. So where's my toy? My eyes widened in disbelief. For a moment, I thought I was hearing things. I never in my wildest dreams imagined that my 4 sons, whom I had cherished and raised like precious treasures, would say such things. My mouth fell open as I tried to explain. But my throat was completely choked, and no sound would come out. Only my tears kept falling, heavy and relentless. The villagers, unable to stand by and watch, began to reproach the sons one after another. What a bunch of ungrateful wretches. Your mother raised you all by herself, And this is how you repay her, with slander. Did all that education just go to waste? The others joined in, echoing the condemnation. The children's faces turned pale with shame, yet their eyes still held a defiant, unyielding glint. They watched me, speechless for a long moment. The eldest child, always praised by the villagers for being well-behaved and studious, glared at me with pure venom. We're the ungrateful ones. Did we ask her to give birth to us? She lives here for free, leeching off my dad's hard-earned money he sends back, using it to support her lover. If it weren't for that monthly check from Dad, she would have given us away long ago. A selfish, two-timing woman like her doesn't deserve to be our mother. Hearing those words, my world spun. I clutched my chest, unable to catch my breath. I crashed to the ground with a heavy thud. I struggled, barely managing to push myself up from the ground. I looked at the children I had raised, their faces dazed and confused. The boss's words acted like a shot of adrenaline, and the villagers broke into excited chatter. Who would have thought Xiuhua was that kind of person? It always struck me as odd. When other men go work in the city, their wives insist on following, but Xiuhua stubbornly stays put in the village. Now that you mention it, you're right, using the money her husband sends for their 4 kids to support a lover. That's truly something else. No wonder the kids want nothing to do with her. They say a child never finds their mother ugly. Xiuhua must have been so harsh with them that they couldn't take it anymore and finally spoke up, weakly leaning against the large tree. I looked at Li Taixing. His eyes darted around, too guilty to meet my gaze. All these years, Li Taixing, as a bottom-rung laborer, had no knack for making money but a whole bag of tricks for spending it. Not only did he never bring a single cent home, he'd even come to me from time to ask for money to take away. For this family, I toiled from dawn till dusk, doing farm work for others in exchange for food. I didn't even rest after a miscarriage, through all the seasons. Even in the bitter cold of deep winter, I would search for anything in the hills or fields that could be turned into money, no matter how hard life got. I never let the children suffer for a single day, but I never complained about any of this in front of the children. I don't want them to think their father is useless, nor do I want to pass the burdens of life on to them. I just want them to grow up happy, that's all. Yet, to my dismay, all my tireless efforts and sacrifices are seen by them as nothing but a scheme to freeload and support another man. My face turned cold as I snapped, bullshit. Anyone with eyes can see how I've struggled through these years. Li Taixing hasn't paid a single cent for the children's food, clothes, or expenses. Every time he comes back, he even asks me for money, to scrape together his travel money and pay the children's school fees. I even went to the town and sold my own blood. My voice wasn't loud, yet every word fell clearly into the ears of everyone present. The 4 children remained defiant, standing beside Li Taixing. They showed no pity for me. Instead, they looked at me as if I were an enemy. My heart turned to ashes. I gave a bitter, self-mocking laugh. Fine, if you all say I'm not fit to be your mother, then starting today, I'm leaving. From now on, you are no longer my sons, and I am no longer Li Taixing's wife. Let all our neighbors bear witness. From this moment on, I have nothing more to do with Li Taixing and his 4 sons. As soon as the words left her mouth, Li Taixing was the first to rush forward. He grabbed her by the hair and snarled, "You think you can just call it quits? You think you can just walk out? After all these years eating my food and living under my roof, you think it's that easy to leave?" I knew he'd pull something like this. She simply let the bundle in her hands fall to the ground. Inside, there was nothing of value except for a few pieces of underclothing. Li Taixing, can I leave now? Don't forget, we never even registered our marriage. I can walk out whenever I want. Hearing this, Li Taixing visibly panicked. In my past life, I had been with Li Taixing since my teens and never gave much thought to a marriage certificate. I figured that with several children already, a piece of paper didn't really matter. Whether we had it or not was all the same. But Li Taixing took advantage of that. He married another woman at the base. By the time I confronted him, he and my own children all called me a madwoman, and I had no evidence to prove otherwise. And now, it's his turn to swallow the same bitter pill. Li Taixing was so furious he ground his teeth, ready to come at me again. I grabbed the shoulder pole beside me and cracked it across his forehead. Li Taixing, in the past, I put up with you again and again for the sake of our child. Now I have no child left. If you lay a single finger on me again, I'll fight you to the death. With my eyes blazing red and a look of utter recklessness, my stance instantly made him back down. His fist, still raised in the air, came crashing down on the tree trunk instead. Fine, Qin Xiuhua, don't you fucking regret this. From now on, the children are mine, even if you're old and dying. Begging me on your knees, Don't even think about our sons giving you a proper funeral. I straightened out my clothes and slowly stood up. Then you can just wait for your ungrateful, precious sons to take good care of you in your old age and send you off properly. With that, I turned and left. Just before I left, I overheard the gossip from the people behind me, and you men have the nerve to spread rumors. Xiaohua was either in the fields or at home every single day, any spare moment she had. She'd go to the mountains to dig for wild vegetables. She saved every bit of good food for her husband and children, and in the end, she left without taking a single penny. It's truly pitiful. After all those years of hardship, the children she raised are less loyal than a dog. So, what's the point of having so many? If they turn out ungrateful, you might as well have smothered them at birth. I've returned to my parents' home. I fixed up the old family house a bit. It's more than spacious enough for one person. After my bath, lying in bed, I fished a few small, crumpled bills from the pocket inside my clothes. My mother taught me this when she was still here. She said you should always keep a way out for yourself, no matter what. All these years, I poured my heart and soul into this family. There were times I was so desperate for food I even sold my blood. The only thing I never touched was this little stash of bills. After a brief day of rest, I went to the train station first thing in the morning to buy a ticket to the base. In my past life, I used my parents' military medals to help Li Taixing get 3 consecutive promotions. In this life, I can use the same medals to forge a path for myself. I packed up all of my parents' belongings and boarded the train bound for a distant place. Everything went smoothly. The base commander's eyes welled up the moment he saw my father's military medal. He said my father was his old regimental commander, who had once saved his life. He brought me back to the base and was overjoyed to learn I had attended high school. I was assigned to teach at the base school, securing not only a stable, respectable job but also a regular monthly income. This was something I had never dared to dream of before. This time, I finally didn't have to worry about where the next meal would come from or how to scrape together the children's school fees. Without the burden of the children, my life became incredibly easy, but I never expected that less than 3 months into this new life, Li Taixing would show up at my door. He stood outside the office, and according to my honest colleague next door, he waited for me for an entire class period. Seeing me come out, he hurried over to me. "Honey, I was wrong. Please forgive me." I didn't even glance his way, ignoring him completely. Not willing to give up, he stepped right in front of me. Only then did I get a clear look at his face. After 3 months apart, he seemed to have aged a decade. His face was covered in stubble, his cheekbones were prominent, and he was painfully thin, with even his shirt dotted with grease stains. I said coldly, with weary impatience, "I'm not your wife. How could I possibly be married when I've never even signed a marriage certificate?" At my words, Li Taixing's eyes flashed with desperation. "Xiaohua. A day as husband and wife brings 100 days of affection. We have 4 such wonderful children. Could you please come home and take care of them? The family truly can't function without you." I let out a scornful laugh. How could that be? After all, I'm just a freeloader, utterly useless. Didn't you find them a rich and beautiful new mother? Let her take care of them. Li Taixing's face was a picture of humiliation, flushed with patches of red and purple. After arriving at the base, I naturally heard from Old 4 about the new mom Li Taixing had found for them, the base's newly arrived young female instructor, the same woman my children had supported in our previous life. But in the last life, it was only with my help that Li Taixing got promoted 3 ranks in a row, making him barely acceptable to others. Now, he has neither money nor power, and he's saddled with 4 growing boys. What decent girl would be foolish enough to sign up to be a live-in nanny? Before, he could still sweet-talk his way around, but now, with the kids constantly seeking him out, the whole base knows about his situation, and the young women are all steering clear of him. Only now, at this point, does he remember me? Li Taixing's eyes were red, looking as aggrieved as a child. "All right, Xiaohua. I know I was wrong before, but I'm already apologizing to you so humbly. What more do you want from me? Have you forgotten the promise we made to never leave each other?" I couldn't take it anymore and slapped him across the face. "Now you remember that promise. How come you forgot all about that so-called promise when you and your precious sons were spreading rumors about me having an affair?" Li Taixing, do you think I'm some kind of doormat? You just snap your fingers and expect me to come running, then dismiss me like I'm nothing. Who the hell do you think you are? At these words, Li Taixing's face turned deathly pale. I thought I had made myself perfectly clear and that he would back off. To my astonishment, he dropped to his knees before me with a thud. "What do you want me to do? Get down on my knees and beg? When you're not home, the kids can't even get a decent meal, their grades have plummeted, and now they're running around with street thugs, getting into muggings and robberies. Even if you don't care about me, think about the children. They're your own flesh and blood. How can you be so heartless? Heartless, in my past life, when I dragged my old, weary body to kneel outside the base, begging them not to be so cruel, how did they treat me? They were all fawning over some other woman, fetching her tea and water, calling me a crazy social climber trying to latch onto the powerful. He even had the base security guards throw me out, saying I was a disgrace kneeling at the gate, damaging the base's image, and that it would look terrible if word got out. He even tried to sue me for slander over the lack of a marriage certificate, threatening to have me arrested and shot. I walked past him coolly. I told you, we're done, your children have nothing to do with me anymore. Li Taixing sobbed behind me, crying out in anguish. I was wrong, I was truly wrong, but if apologies actually worked, then what was the point of all the suffering I went through? The next day, as soon as I stepped out of the dormitory building, I ran into the boss again. He looked completely different from last time. Gone was the righteous indignation, replaced by a face full of awkward unease. Mom, Lon Lon is pregnant. Her mother is threatening to call the police. You have to help me. As he spoke, he actually started to cry. This was the first time I had ever seen him shed a tear, yet I felt absolutely nothing inside. Lon Lon was his classmate and childhood sweetheart from our past life. Back then, he blamed me for tearing them apart. In this life, without my interference, they finally ended up together. It wasn't me who got someone pregnant, so why are you coming to me? Didn't we already make it clear last time? I'm not your mother anymore. You've got the wrong person. Brother, come on. Let's go home. Two familiar voices called out from behind. It was the second and third brothers, who had arrived together. They grabbed Li Dong and started to pull him away. Why are you begging her? Have you forgotten? She said herself she didn't want us. It's just a pregnancy. We've already raised the money for you. Just take it and pay the Lon family. As they spoke, the two men pulled out stacks of crisp new blue 100 yuan bills from their pockets. I couldn't help but gasp. It seemed what Li Taixing said about them being highway robbers was true. Noticing me staring at the cash in their hands, the second brother sneered. Humph, you think we'd starve without you, free from your constant nagging. Us brothers have been living the high life, feasting and drinking every day. It's a hell of a lot better than before. Let me make this clear. Not only do you refuse to acknowledge us, but even if you got on your knees and begged us to call you mom, we wouldn't do it. The third brother chimed in with more sarcasm. Don't think carrying a few books makes you some kind of intellectual. You've probably never seen this much money in your entire life. Who do you think you are, acting all high and mighty? All you ever do is lecture us about studying. Can reading books earn you this kind of money? Hearing their true feelings, a wave of sorrow washed over me. In my past life, I exhausted myself to put them through school, even though I spent my whole life in the countryside. I knew knowledge could change one's destiny. I told them to be upright, law-abiding people and to master a practical skill to rely on, even if book learning didn't come easily. To think, all my earnest advice was seen by them as nothing but nagging. Even though I left this life early, their hatred for me didn't lessen in the slightest. I let out a sigh so faint it was almost inaudible. Since your brother has come with money to bail you out, just go. Don't ever show your faces around me again. You may not be afraid of getting caught for robbery and rape, but I want no part of your legal troubles. Thanks a lot. Now get away from me, I said coldly, then turned and walked away. I left the three of them standing there, utterly dumbfounded. I thought I had been harsh enough, and they certainly wouldn't come looking for me again. I never expected the base security guard to come looking for me in the middle of the night. The rain was pouring down, just as heavy as the day in my past life when I came to the base looking for Li Taixing. Teacher Chen, there's a kid at the gate asking for you. He doesn't look too good. You should go see him right away. By the time I rushed to the entrance, I saw Lao Si sitting in the guardhouse, his face covered in blood. There were cuts and bruises all over his arms and legs. Mom, my brothers got into a fight and were taken away. I can't find Dad. You have to go help them. I turned my back on him. I have no children. My children died a long time ago. The youngest child's small frame was suddenly racked with sobs. Why are you abandoning us? We're your own flesh and blood. How can you be so heartless? I gave a faint, bitter smile. Heartless? If I were truly heartless, you'd have starved to death long ago. I even sold my own blood just to put food on the table for you. And how did you repay me? Seeing I remained unmoved, he fell to his knees before me, clutching my legs and pleading. Mom, please, I'm begging you. A gang of bandits stormed the house, cutting down everyone in sight. My brothers are badly wounded. If I hadn't run fast, I'd be dead. I'm so scared. My heart ached for a moment, But then I remembered his face from my past life, how he sowed discord between me and my other 3 sons. In an instant, any motherly tenderness in my heart was snuffed out. If you have a problem, go find your father. Why come to me? I'm not your guardian anymore. In my past life, the second and third sons refused to study, spending all their time hanging out with street punks, afraid they'd go down the wrong path. I sent them to a closed-off technical school to learn a trade. I didn't need them to be prodigies. I just wanted them to have a trade, a real skill, so they wouldn't go down the wrong path. The tuition for my 2 kids' trade school felt like 2 mountains crushing me. When the river froze solid, I'd break the ice to fish. When the mountains were buried in snow, I'd go hunting for pheasants. I fell into ravines more than once, almost too hurt to get up, but thinking of my children's future, I swallowed the pain and forced myself to carry on. In the end, I scraped together the money for their tuition, but my body paid the price, and as I got older, my health just kept getting worse. This time, without my intervention, they ultimately chose the path of crime, but that was their own choice, and they must face the consequences, this time. I don't want to trouble myself with these worries anymore. Seeing my heart of stone, Old Fourth stood up and shot me a venomous glare. You're ruthless. If I'd known you were this vicious, so heartless you wouldn't even lift a finger to save your own son, I should have let my father beat you to death back then. With that, he stormed off into the pouring rain. After he left, I asked the security guard why I hadn't seen Li Taixing. He said that Li Taixing had been expelled from the base a week ago for harassing a female instructor. I heard from folks in the village later that the fight that night was especially brutal. It turned out that Boss's first love, Lon Lon, had a boyfriend from outside the school. When he found out Boss had gotten her pregnant, he was so enraged that he went straight to the house with a knife. Once there, he also ran into his usual rivals in their robbery business, second brother and third brother. The 2 groups went at each other in a fierce, all-out brawl. The eldest son's right hand was severed, and he would never hold a pen again. The second son lost an eye, and the third son was left with a crippled leg. The luckiest of them, the fourth son, hid in the chicken coop and narrowly escaped the calamity. Hearing all this, my heart ached in spite of myself. They are my own flesh and blood. Of course it pains me, yet, when I think of their past cruelty towards me, I can only feel a profound sense of irony and regret. Giving your all doesn't guarantee a good end. In my past life, I devoted my entire existence to loving them, only to be denied even a proper grave in the end. So why should I trouble my heart so much in this one? On the anniversary of my parents' passing, I returned to the village once more. I never expected Li Taixing, who had been hiding all this time, to be waiting for me at my parents' graveside. He was dressed in tatters, looking utterly haggard. If you didn't look closely, you wouldn't recognize him at all. Anyone else would have mistaken him for an old scavenger. Seeing me approach, he ran a hand through his dry, tangled hair and gave a self-deprecating smile. Then, looking at me with deep meaning, he said, Qin Xiuhua, in this life, you're here to settle a score from a past life with me and my sons, aren't you? At those words, my hand, holding the lighter, trembled almost imperceptibly. Li Taixing saw it all. I neither denied it nor admitted it. Whether it's true or not, it was you who said you wanted a divorce. It was you who insisted we never get a marriage certificate in the first place. What's the point of saying all this now? I threw all the joss paper I had brought into the fire. As I stood up, I noticed 4 more people had appeared nearby. The treasures I once held closest to my heart were now, each one, more down and out than the last. They were once well-mannered honor students, skilled technical experts, and accomplished scholars, but now, some are maimed, others are crippled, and the youngest of them all, Old Fourth, has been forced to shoulder the entire family's burden. What are you doing here looking for her? Old Fourth glared at Li Taixing, his face full of resentment. If she hadn't abandoned us, how could we have ended up like this? I looked at my other 3 sons, and their gazes were filled with nothing but resentment. I let out a bitter, incredulous laugh. I pointed at each of them, one by one, and let them have it. Sure, I abandoned you, but did I ever force you to start dating in middle school? Did I ever force you to go out and rob people or pick fights? You chose the wrong path. So don't blame anyone else if you don't know how to be decent people. Society will teach you. I didn't linger for long and returned to base that same day. Another 6 months passed before news arrived of Li Taixing's death. The villagers say that after I left the village following my visit to my parents' graves, Li Taixing completely lost his mind. He babbles all day long, claiming he was once a base commander and that he has 2 wives. He also boasts that all 5 of his sons are successful and filial. He pays no attention to family matters whatsoever. The household barely scrapes by, relying entirely on the few children who collect scrap and do odd jobs to earn a pittance. Back then, I was still young, my hair hadn't yet been turned white by the wear and tear of sons and grandsons, and my back was still straight, not bent out of shape. Chun drank himself into a stupor every day. When he ran out of money for liquor, he'd borrow from anyone he could. In the end, he got drunk one last time, fell into a drainage ditch, and drowned. But I knew Li Taixing had never known about that path, let alone had any reason to take it. I had only ever shown that path to the ditch to old Four. On New Year's Eve, a horrific tragedy occurred in my hometown. A junior high school girl was dragged into a small grove by 3 boys and brutally murdered. Witnesses reported that the youngest of the assailants was just a child. According to police reports, the killer was left-handed. One glance at the newspaper was all it took for me to know who the killer was. 3 days later, Li Taixing's 3 sons were locked up in a juvenile detention center. Countless times, they asked the guards to see me, and each time I coldly refused. When I wouldn't see them, they wrote me letters. I never opened a single one, burning them all instead. In this life, without my efforts and support, the father and his 3 sons have each found their own paths, the ones they were always meant to walk. And those paths were of their own choosing. For better or worse, they have no one else to blame. The spring sunlight streams through the window, year after year. I believe my wonderful life will continue to unfold, year after year. Story 2. On the day when Xinyan's childhood sweetheart invited me to meet her, a fire happened in the building. When my legs were pressed under the pillar, the flames burned my skin and flesh. Lin Qiao and I were trapped in the room by the fire, and my fiancé Xinyan, after receiving my call, was on his way. The fire was getting bigger and bigger, and my heart gradually sank, until Lin Qiao's voice and Xinyan's footsteps sounded at the same time. Yan, you come to save me. It hurts, I just sprained my foot. Xinyan didn't hesitate when he picked her up, but I still heard him shout in my direction, Yao Yao. After all, I was the one who called for help. I only barely responded, and then I lost the strength to answer. I only heard Lin Qiao screaming, hurry up, it's too late. Yan, Song Yao Yao will run away by herself. Yan, hurry up, I don't want to die. Lin Qiao's voice was filled with anxious tears. I know Xinyan has never been able to refuse the little childhood sweetheart he once held in his heart. He even hid our wedding from her. Xinyan is smart enough to revive his company in just a few years, but at this moment, he didn't think about the hidden reason behind my silence after I responded. The leg that was broken by the shelf was in great pain. Xinyan didn't look back when he left. The thick smoke in the house filled my mouth and nose, burning me so that I couldn't even see his back clearly. In the pain of burning flesh, I heard the system sentence me to death first. Strategy failed. You have one last chance. The burning pain was still left on my skin, and I returned to the time when I just entered this world. The electronic voice of the system sounded again. Do you need to change the target of your strategy? I stood at the alley where I saved Xinyan in my previous life and refused firmly. No. Xinyan curled up in the rotten garbage, and the blood on his head dripped down. He didn't see me, and a faint groan came out of his mouth. Maybe changing the target will be better then. The voice of the system stopped abruptly as I stepped on Xinyan's fingers. I crushed him hard. Xinyan raised his head, and the blood on his face covered his eyes. He couldn't see my appearance clearly. I squatted down, stroked his face with my fingertips, and said in a voice softer than in my previous life, don't be afraid, I'm here to save you, Xinyan. In my previous life, I suffered for Xinyan. When I was in love, I had to endure that he was thinking about Xiao Qingmei in his heart, and even when he was dying, he had to abandon me. Change the target of your strategy. Impossible. He should also taste the pain I have tasted. When I was inexplicably teleported to this world, the system introduced me to my target, Xinyan, a poor second-generation rich man. After his family went bankrupt and was heavily in debt, his parents jumped off the building. Xinyan was left behind, being forced to death by debt collectors every day, and my identity was a friend of Xinyan's former circle who I knew since childhood but was not familiar with. When I first tried to capture him, the system said that I was a newcomer and gave me a set of strategies: treat him well regardless of the consequences, and influence him with all-embracing love. So in my previous life, I saved him, took him in, and helped him pay off his debts. Do my best to treat him well without asking for anything in return. After hiding him for 7 years, I waited for him to say, Yao Yao, let's be together. There was no love, only responsibility. The funny thing is that in the end, I was still abandoned by him and died tragically. In this life, the 18-year-old Xinyan opened his eyes from the bed and saw me sitting by the bed looking at him. Song Yao Yao. I met his eyes. burst into tears, and threw myself on him when the doctor left. He said he had a wound on his stomach, and I bumped into him and pressed on his wound. Shen frowned, but I hugged him and cried regardless, crying about the thrill and difficulty of saving him. Although he was a little confused, he still thanked me seriously. Thank you. I let go of my hand holding him, sat by the bed and looked at him. Shen, thank you should be practical. An unfamiliar friend saving someone should have something to gain. He is now a person that everyone in the circle avoids. Shen didn't seem to expect me to say this. He was stunned for a moment and said embarrassedly, I will pay back the medical expenses. But now I don't lack money. I interrupted him. Shen phone suddenly vibrated at this moment, and a note popped up on the broken screen, a Qiao. Oh, it was his childhood sweetheart Lin Qiao. When he picked up the phone, his voice softened a little. A Qiao, I'm fine, all right. I sat by the bed, looked at his leg in plaster, and smiled with pursed lips. The person on the other end obviously didn't care much about his situation, and said it's good that he's not dead, and hung up in a hurry. Shen smiled at me when he put down the phone, and his tone returned to distant politeness. I can write an IOU, and I will pay it back later. I looked at him leisurely and said the most rebellious sentence after rebirth, be my boyfriend. The mechanical electronic sound of the system screamed in my head. He won't agree, I said. I can help you pay off your debts and provide you with funds to start a business. Don't you want to take revenge on those who made you bankrupt? Shen looked at me, and there was some physiological fog in his black and white eyes. His face was still covered with wounds, but his back was as straight as when his family was not in decline. No, thank you. When I walked out of the room, the system was still screaming. Are you just giving up? Don't you want to complete the mission and go home? I want to. Of course I want to. Calm down and listen to me. It's better for us to change the target of the strategy, you see. No, I interrupted it. Shen has self-esteem, and he has a childhood sweetheart in his heart. He will definitely not agree at this moment. I was stupid in my previous life. I did everything for him, but never took credit in front of him. Let him think that there is really free dedication in this world, but he should know that everything in this world has a price. This is the first lesson I want to teach him after rebirth. Shen legs were not healed on the day he was discharged from the hospital, and he was in a wheelchair. I asked the driver to take him back to school. The car window was half down, and I stood at the door and waved, watching Shen leave. The system asked a question in my mind. You just let him go, of course. I said, because he will be back soon. The system asked again, but I didn't answer again, because I am sure that Shen will come back to find me. In his previous life, I took care of everything for him, and his life was as comfortable as before he went bankrupt. Now that I am not protecting him, I want to see how long he can hold on. It has been 4 or 5 days since Shen returned to school. I counted the days and went to the classroom where he was taking classes. When Shen came to the lecture hall, he was alone. The wheelchair had to go up the steps, and it was inconvenient for him to go alone. I looked up to ask for help from the classmate closest to him, but the boy lowered his head first and searched in the desk. Shen opened his mouth and closed it again, looking around, and the people in the classroom pretended not to see it. I pulled down the brim of my baseball cap. I saw a girl sitting in front talking to someone next to her. So pitiful. If his family hadn't gone bankrupt, he wouldn't have been bullied like this. Do you want to help him? The girl shook her head like a rattle. I don't want to get into trouble either. Shen was a little at a loss below. It wasn't until the bell rang that the male teacher who came in asked him if he needed help. After class, I followed Shen to the cafeteria. In the crowded cafeteria, he was the only one sitting in a wheelchair. The crowded place smelled turbid. I bought a meal and sat down, watching Shen standing in the middle of the line, and his wheelchair was squeezed out of the line from time to time, until the boy carrying the meal passed by. He was tripped by him, and most of the soup in his hand spilled out. Shen was stunned for a moment before speaking. Sorry. The boy who was hit seemed to suddenly get angry, and the rice plate tilted towards him. The greasy food and soup slid down Shen's cheek and stained his clean shirt. You don't have eyes, do you? The cafeteria suddenly became quiet, and countless eyes looked at them. Shen had a jade-carved face, but his expression was panic. He apologized again. Sorry, it's not convenient for me to sit in a wheelchair. But the other party was relentless. I sat at the table and slowly picked up the food with chopsticks to eat. The system said, good timing, host, you rush up and save the beauty. I didn't move, and slowly finished the food in front of me. The other party cursed Shen several times before walking away. Shen wanted to leave with his head full of food and eyes downcast, but the wheel was stuck by something. He couldn't deal with it, and in the public eye, He could only call Lin Xiao for help. I saw him dial the phone several times before it got through. The crowd was crowded. I quietly moved closer and heard him ask, "Ah Xiao, can you come over, help me?" The other side replied impatiently, "No," then hung up. Shen Yan was in the center of the crowd, but people avoided him, forming a lonely circle. I put the lunch tray into the recycling bin, and then slowly called Shen Yan. The call was connected after a long time. I stood outside the cafeteria and smiled and said, "Shen Yan, have you eaten?" He hummed softly. I asked him, "Are you still short of money? Has anyone come to bother you recently? Tell me, how have you been doing in school recently? Be careful when you go out. Don't be found by those debt collectors again. I ate eggplant boxes when I had dinner today. I remember you used to like it. Do you want me to come to school and bring you some?" Shen Yan didn't say anything, and I said a lot on this end alone. After that, there was a short silence. I suddenly said, "You are unhappy, aren't you? Who bullied you? Are they here again?" My series of questions went unanswered. In the end, I only heard Shen Yan's trembling voice, "Yao Yao." It was like an unspeakable show of weakness. "Can you come to me now?" "Okay," I answered without hesitation. The sun at noon was so bright that it made people dizzy. I lowered my eyes and smiled. Shen Yan was like a crane stuck in the mud, refusing to bow his head. In this life, I will break his pride, so that he will know that everything has a price. I sent Shen Yan to my home. After the private doctor examined Shen Yan, he told him to supplement his nutrition. Only then can your legs get better quickly. I took the burn ointment from the doctor and applied it on Shen Yan's forehead. Shen Yan lowered his eyes and let me touch him obediently. After applying and putting it away, I sat by his bed without leaving, touching the hair on his cheek with my fingers. Shen Yan subconsciously leaned back. "Shen Yan, would you like to reconsider my proposal?" Before Shen Yan could speak, I continued, "You don't have to think too highly of me, just think of it as a deal. I'll buy you 3 years of being on call. After 3 years, we'll have nothing to do with each other." No one spoke. I approached him and continued to coax him, "I'm just giving you a chance. You don't have to feel burdened. This is just a deal. After you pay off your debt, they won't bother you anymore. You can devote yourself to avenging your parents." "Shen Yan," I looked at him, "don't you want to hurry up and avenge your parents?" Shen Yan was silent for a long time. The last beam of light from the sunset floated on his face, showing a bit of loneliness for no reason. I waited quietly, until the system advised me, "Host, let's not push people too hard." Shen Yan suddenly said, "Okay." I paid off all his debts in front of Shen Yan. The next day, when I got up early and pushed Shen Yan to school, at the door of the classroom, I happened to bump into Lin Xiao. In fact, I didn't see her very often in my previous life. Shen Yan hid his feelings very well. When I occasionally saw Lin Xiao, she was covered in luxury goods and was as arrogant as a princess. Now I saw her, I was shocked. She seemed to have been spoiled too well. From the age of 18 to 27, she never changed, always high and mighty. Lin Xiao was carrying the latest bag of D, and the diamond earrings on her ears were dazzling. She frowned when she passed me. Ignoring me, she said to Shen Yan, "Are you okay?" Shen Yan looked up at me and shook his head. I ignored her and pushed Shen Yan into the classroom. Countless people looked at us, but Lin Xiao suddenly pushed me away from behind. "I'll do it." I held the handle and didn't move. "My boyfriend, don't worry about it." Lin Xiao was stunned for a moment, and her eyes turned back and forth between my face and Shen Yan's. Shen Yan lowered his eyes and avoided her gaze. She suddenly sneered, "Okay, Shen Yan, you are really brave." Shen Yan wanted to speak, but she walked away with her bag without looking back. Shen Yan didn't chase. I caught a glimpse of him stroking the screen of his mobile phone with my peripheral vision. Lin Xiao's name was hanging above the dialog box. The system asked me, "Host, will you tell Lin Xiao about your agreement?" I said firmly, "No." In order to take care of Shen Yan, I asked him to move to my place. I told the kitchen to make tonic soup every day to nourish him. That day, after dinner, the housekeeper pushed him to walk in the garden, and I went shopping alone. The couple bracelets on the counter sparkled. I picked and picked, not noticing someone standing next to me. "Song Yao Yao." I looked up and happened to meet Lin Xiao's beautiful eyes. She smiled, as if she had never argued with me. I took a step back, and she came closer to me. "Do you like Shen Yan?" "Yes, he is good looking, and I liked him more before, but he never agreed." "Do you know why?" I asked the salesperson to pack the 2 bracelets and smiled at her. "No need to show off to me. You don't like him now, do you? What are you afraid of?" "Lin Xiao." I took a step forward. "Are you afraid that he will like me?" "Think too much." Lin Xiao shrugged nonchalantly. "Just remind you, don't bet on the wrong treasure. Shen Yan's parents are not good at business. and he may not be good either. Don't bother. Lin Xiao walked away with a breeze. The system complained in my head. I don't know if she can still laugh out loud when she sees the male lead become successful in the future. Of course she can, I said, because she doesn't care. As long as she is willing to look back, Xin Yan will always be behind her. It was in the last life, but this life, it may not be the case, thanks to me. Xin Yan's college life was very peaceful. His leg injury also healed quickly, and it was back to normal in less than 3 months. He was holding back a lot of energy in his heart, while busy with his studies. He was also trying to start a business. I knew he was anxious, but I didn't offer to fund his startup capital like in the last life. The system asked me, "What are you going to do next?" Slowly cultivate feelings. The turning point in my relationship with Xin Yan happened in the 5th month of our relationship. It was his birthday that day, and for the first time ever, he went home early. I sat on the sofa in the living room reading a book, and occasionally flipped through my phone. I came back in the evening, holding his hand and excitedly saying, "You came back so early today, let's go to the private kitchen I booked for dinner." I booked it several months ago. Xin Yan was stunned for a moment and was pulled out of the house by me. The restaurant was located halfway up the mountain, and it was almost night when the car drove over. I picked up a lot of dishes for Xin Yan. He ate absent-mindedly, occasionally looking at the phone on the table, but there was no movement. After dinner, I took him for a walk. The path behind the yard led directly to the top of the mountain, and I held his hand. The mountain road was a bit rugged, and I tripped over a stone. Xin Yan quickly grabbed my waist and said, "I'll carry you." I shook my head and leaned over to kiss him. Xin Yan almost jumped away as if he was frightened, and his ears were red. The top of the mountain was very quiet, so quiet that there was only the rustling sound of the wind blowing the leaves. The time on the phone jumped to 10 o'clock in the evening. Xin Yan sat down on the bench. The phone in his pocket vibrated, and he quickly took it out, but only saw a spam message. I saw that he was instantly disappointed, and clicked on the dialog box on his phone, staying on the Lin Xiao column, but there was no movement. In half an hour, it would be time for Lin Xiao to go to bed. Xin Yan didn't say anything, so I sat quietly on the side. I knew what he was waiting for. Time passed by minute by minute. When there were only 15 minutes left, he suddenly turned off the phone. "Yao Yao, are you cold?" He gave up. I shook my head. "Xin Yan, don't wait." He was stunned. I said, "It's just a happy birthday." "I can say that too. I booked this private chef a long time in advance, thinking you would like it. I feel that you are very tired recently, and I also made an appointment with a nutritionist and a masseur for you. The scheduled fireworks suddenly rose into the sky, interrupting my next words. 6 Chinese characters appeared in the blooming fireworks. "Happy birthday, Xin Yan." It was too hasty. "It feels a bit rustic." I frowned and turned my head to look at Xin Yan. The fireworks were reflected in his eyes, making his eyebrows and eyes beautiful. "Xin Yan," I shouted his name loudly. He turned his head to look at me, leaned closer, and his eyebrows and eyes were shining. A lot of haze was dissipated. I got close to his ear. "What is more terrible than not receiving a birthday blessing?" "Of course there is. For example, the grand birthday party he had in the past, and the blessings and gifts he never lacked. But now, it's only me." I said, "I will remember it. Even if no one remembers, I will remember it." "Xin Yan, happy birthday." Xin Yan finally laughed. Amid the deafening sound of fireworks, my lips brushed his cheek. He looked at me, and in the fireworks, a small me was reflected. The next second, he kissed me. The system made a harsh mechanical sound in my head. Xin Yan's lips touched and separated. I blushed first. The system said, "Awesome." After all, in my previous life, Xin Yan never took the initiative to kiss me, and I took the initiative to kiss him. When we went down the mountain, Xin Yan held my hand and never separated. After this night, our relationship progressed by leaps and bounds. Gradually, we became like a real couple. Xin Yan's career also gradually got on the right track. 2 years passed in a flash. After seeing Xin Yan making milk for me after finishing work, the system said, "I feel that you are progressing much faster this time than last time. If we continue like this for a few years, it should be possible, right?" I took a few sips of milk on the sofa. "Did you forget? It's because Lin Xiao didn't show up." The system hesitated. "It should be." "No way." I smiled. I calculated the time. "It's almost time for Lin Xiao's grandmother to get sick, in her last life." She begged Xin Yan and shed a few tears, which made Xin Yan feel very distressed. She was willing to put down her face and beg me. I agreed to Xin Yan's request, and then made a difficult request: let Xin Yan not associate with Lin Xiao in the future. Xin Yan's eyes fell on my face and were a little cold. but they returned to gentleness in an instant. He said, okay, he did it. He did not associate with her again, but he didn't ignore her. Later, he helped Lin Xiao deal with countless crises. He had never had any cross-border communication with Lin Xiao. And even the conversations on the phone were very few, but again and again, when she encountered difficulties, he silently helped her take care of everything. The system asked me what I would do this time. Actually, I think maybe he will be different this time. No difference. I lowered my eyes. He will still come to me. The day Lin Xiao came to him, Xin Yan did not go home at night for the first time. I sent him a message and asked him where he went. He said that the company had something to do and overtime, so I went to bed early, so I turned off my phone and fell asleep. Xin Yan came back in the morning. His eyebrows and eyes were tired, and there were obvious wrinkles on his shirt. I turned over in bed, and Xin Yan took me into his arms and hugged me. Without saying a word, there was a strange and quiet atmosphere floating in the air. The system broke the silence. Host. He won't really speak, right? Of course he will. Xin Yan buried his head in my neck, his eyelashes still dripping with morning moisture. Yao Yao. His voice was vague, like sticky frosting. My friend's grandmother is sick. He wants a foreign doctor to do the surgery. The chance of success will be higher, but he can't find a way. I turned over in his arms and hugged him. Is he your best friend? Xin Yan was stunned for a moment before saying, yes. I said, your best friend is mine. I'll help you find a way. Xin Yan lowered his eyes and kissed my forehead. You've worked hard. I was a little amused and sat up. You know it, Xin Yan. I'll agree to whatever you say. I didn't lie to him. People live for many things in their lives. But since I came to this world, I have set myself to come only for Xin Yan. Xin Yan closed his eyes and hugged me tighter. Yao Yao, thank you. I leaned against his chest to listen to his heartbeat, and asked the system in my heart. Do you think he will tell me that friend is Lin Xiao? The system was silent for a moment. Probably not. No, he will, so I have to find out for myself before he tells me in person. The doctor was invited from abroad, and the cost was very high. Fortunately, the operation was successful. A week after the operation, Xin Yan went to grandma from time to time. I bought some fruit and followed him. The door of the ward was not closed tightly, and I stood at the door and looked inside. Xin Yan peeled an apple for grandma, and grandma smiled and thanked her. Thanks to you. I hope grandma can get better. Xin Yan put the fruit knife aside and stood up to leave. I still have. Lin Xiao suddenly threw herself on him and hugged him, tears welling up in her eyelashes. Xin Yan's body stiffened for a moment, and he subconsciously reached out to push her. Lin Xiao held him tightly. Yan, thanks to you, grandma can get better. She cried so hard that Xin Yan was a little helpless and patted her back. It's okay, grandma will get better. Lin Xiao looked at him with tears in her eyes. I'll treat you to dinner tonight. No, when Xin Yan left home this morning, he said he wanted to go out to eat with me. Lin Xiao's voice was soft. We haven't eaten together for a long time. I looked at Xin Yan's expression and became hesitant. It took a long time before he spoke. Okay. Before he finished speaking, the door of the ward was suddenly opened by me. Xin Yan, who was held by Lin Xiao, suddenly turned pale and broke free from her arms. Yao Yao. I put the fruit down and called grandma with a smile. Xin Yan said you recovered well. I have been busy and only had time to see you. Grandma looked at Xin Yan with some doubts. Xin Yan said, this is the friend who introduced the doctor to you. Friend, I sneered in my heart. I left not long after I stayed. When I went downstairs, I heard Xin Yan chasing after me and calling me, Yao Yao, Yao Yao. I ignored him and walked forward. There were many people in the corridor. Xin Yan tripped and bumped into someone else, attracting scolding all the way. I turned a deaf ear and walked forward. Xin Yan finally took my hand and took me into his arms. I was wrong, Yao Yao. Don't be angry with me. I didn't mean to not tell you that it was Lin Xiao. You were afraid that I would be angry. You were afraid that I would not help you because of Lin Xiao, so you didn't tell me, and you distanced yourself from me in front of her grandmother. Xin Yan, is my sincerity worthless? He was stunned for a moment, as if he didn't expect me to say this suddenly. I looked at him and suddenly burst into tears. Xin Yan panicked and wiped my tears with his sleeve. I was wrong, Yao Yao, don't cry. It's all my fault. If you don't want me to associate with Lin Xiao in the future, I won't associate with her. I was indifferent. You know I will forgive you. Because I like you. You can do whatever you want. There will never be another idiot like me in the world who loses tens of millions for one person's 3 years. You know that the deal is an excuse. You know I like you. But you actually know everything. You think I'm stupid, too, right? Not stupid, not stupid. Xin Yan hugged me, his voice trembling. Yao Yao is the smartest person in the world. It's my fault. It's all my fault. I will never associate with Lin Xiao again. In front of me, he deleted and blocked Lin Xiao's WeChat. I wiped my tears, struggled out of his arms, and still ignored him. Xinyan is very busy. I always know. His company was in its early stages, and he had too much work to do every day. I never intervened in any company affairs. And he had to do it all by himself. At that time, even visiting Lin Xiao's grandmother was only possible when passing by, but now he squeezes out several hours every day to coax me. Xinyan worked 2 shifts on business trips, and when he was abroad, he didn't get enough sleep and called me. Yao Yao, do you want anything? I said, no. Then let me help you choose. There was no impatience in his tone, but he was eager to try. Last time I went on a business trip, I said I didn't have anything. And he bought all the things he liked, and the necklace could hang around my neck. I sighed, just buy one. The person on the other end obediently replied, okay. I thought about it, and then said, I'm not angry with you anymore. Xinyan took a breath. I'll book a flight tomorrow and come back to see you right away. I was amused by him. What about work? Not as important as you. I pursed my lips and smiled. When I hung up the phone, the moonlight fell at my feet. I remembered that I was sick in my previous life, and Xinyan was going on a business trip abroad. I had a fever in bed, hugged the quilt and was listless. When Xinyan left, he called me. Yao Yao, I'm going out. I answered. In fact, as careful as he is, he may not be able to hear the hoarseness in my voice. I didn't ask him to stay. I just played the role of a wife who was willing to compromise, just like the strategy given by the system, and didn't delay any of his work, love or not. It's actually quite obvious. The strategy given by the system is really stupid. The mechanical voice in my head complained dissatisfiedly. Other strategists do this, then I wish them success. My thoughts came back, and this time, the system's prompt came after a few seconds. Host, I think this game should be stable. He deleted all the green plums, and he kept them in his previous life. Not even close. I said, what's missing? The last decision in the previous life, but in this life. It doesn't matter who he chooses. I accompanied Xinyan to the dinner, and he helped me choose the dress. When I arrived, several people looked at me with surprise in their eyes. Xinyan was going to talk business with others, and I was wandering around the banquet hall with a glass of wine. There were few people on the second floor, and I stood on the balcony to look at the lake below. When we came in, the security guard reminded us that the lake was very deep and not to get too close. After waiting for a long time, the person I had an appointment with came. Lin Xiao's eyes were filled with fatigue that could not be hidden even with makeup. You want to show off to me? Xinyan deleted me. Do you think you succeeded? I said, I don't think so. I used to think that if I fought for him, Xinyan might love me, but later I found out that there were many girls who had this idea, because he has a good personality and is gentle. Later I found out that no matter how hard you fight, he only has one person in his heart, Lin Xiao. I actually envy you. No matter what you do, he will accompany you. I smiled at her. Can you bet with me one last time? His career is on the rise now, and it won't be long before he can turn things around. If you win, I will withdraw by myself and save your reputation. Lin Xiao looked at me coldly, as if she wanted to find out how much truth and falsehood there was in my words. Are you really willing to give up? I smiled. His heart is not with me. I can't keep him. She raised her eyebrows and agreed readily, because she knew, it must be her. A few minutes later, the sound of someone falling into the water spread throughout the hall. I floated and sank in the bottomless lake, choking on water. There were more and more people on the lakeside. I saw Xinyan running and jumped into the water without hesitation. The water was very cold in the late autumn night. I choked several times and watched the figure swimming closer and closer to me stop halfway. He held up another slender figure and swam to the shore. Just like that day at the fire scene, he hugged Lin Xiao to escape without looking back. There is another one. It's sinking. The late security guard jumped into the water, hugged my waist and brought me to the shore. Lin Xiao curled up in Xinyan's arms with his coat on. The moment he got ashore, Xinyan let go of his hand and strode towards me. Yao Yao, I don't know. The waiter put a blanket on me, and the beautiful dress he picked for me in the afternoon was already tangled with water plants. The water in the lungs and the thick smoke in the nasal cavity are equally suffocating. I coughed several times before looking up at him. He wanted to come up and hug me. His eyebrows and eyes were at a loss. His face was pale. It was too dark. I didn't see. You can't see me, but you can see Lin Xiao. I coughed a few times and looked at him, with no expression on my face. Xinyan lowered his eyes, and Lin Xiao behind him was calling him, one voice softer than the other, but he didn't look back. Xinyan grabbed my hand. My hand was very cold, and the heat came over at once. It was like a beam of fire burning from the fingertips. I didn't cry. I didn't question him. I just slowly pulled my hand out of my hand. Xinyan refused to let go, so I broke it one by one. I said, I don't want you anymore, Xinyan, I don't want you anymore. Xinyan's ears kept echoing with Song Yaoyao's words, a very calm voice. There was no crying, no excitement, and no questioning. Xinyan did not dare to look at her. She gathered the blanket around her and slowly stood up. Xinyan followed her step by step. Song Yaoyao's driver came to pick her up home. Xinyan drove behind them all the way to the villa. The housekeeper opened the door and saw her falling into the water, and said in a panic, Miss, come in quickly. I'll ask the kitchen to make you some hot brown sugar water. Whereas Master Shen, Song Yaoyao did not speak and walked straight in. When the door was about to close, Xinyan heard her say, he won't come. Xinyan sent her text messages. But she didn't reply. She called her, but she didn't answer. Xinyan has never been a person who doesn't know his limits, like those relatives who hesitated and retreated when the family went bankrupt, and Lin Xiao, who suddenly became cold and didn't want to talk to him more. He understood. Lin Xiao occasionally asked him about his recent situation on WeChat to make sure he was not dead, and never said much. Xinyan knew that it was actually her parents' instructions. It was just a little kindness in a difficult situation, which was rare. Xinyan remembered her kindness and understood her, so he was no longer as close to her as before. The little throbbing in his youth was worn away by reality. Only Song Yaoyao was an exception. She was like a ball of fire, rising suddenly in the cold winter. It was so hot that it almost burned him. It made him think he was frozen. She was spoiled and willful. They didn't have much interaction in the past. But when they met again when he was down and out, she asked him to be her boyfriend as soon as she opened her mouth. It seemed like a deliberate teasing. Xinyan didn't want to. She didn't force it. Later, she was despised by everyone, and she was the only one who came for him. Later, when she mentioned it again, Xinyan thought, it was just a teasing. Anyway, it has come to this. He has nothing to lose. Unexpectedly, Song Yaoyao did not laugh at him, order him around, or ridicule him. She just really hoped that he would get better. When the housekeeper pushed him to take a walk in the small garden, talked to him about Song Yaoyao, he also knew about the inexplicable agreement, but he never neglected Xinyan. The young lady is a little willful, but she is a good child. She just doesn't understand. What don't you understand? I don't know how to get along with others. The master and his wife don't stay at home much. So the young lady's education is missing a link. She doesn't know how to get along with others, and she doesn't know what to do if she likes someone. Just be nice to people and satisfy all their wishes. It's hard to change a character that has been developed over the years. She will only turn back after hitting a wall once. The housekeeper sighed, his tone serious. Don't lie to her. If you don't like her, she will leave on her own. Xinyan didn't understand at that time. Later, he lied for the first time in a dilemma. It was only 2 weeks from the beginning to being exposed. Xinyan saw Song Yaoyao crying, and his heart was twisted into pieces. If she didn't like it, she would leave on her own. How could he not like it? Xinyan wanted to put her at the top of his heart. On one side was the former elder, and on the other side was the person at the top of his heart. Xinyan was afraid that she would hate Lin Xiao and refuse to agree, when facing grandma's question. He was afraid that he and her were not a good match, so he lied. We were friends. When can we tell everyone openly that they are a couple? How high do we have to stand to be considered a real match with her? Xinyan didn't know. He only knew to climb up desperately. He just wanted to be faster, faster. But the more he wanted to be with her, the further he pushed her away. When he came to his senses, their relationship was already shaky. It didn't matter what he lost. After his parents jumped off the building, Xinyan kept guarding the morning hall for 3 days, thinking in vain. Then Song Yaoyao appeared. She became the exception again. Whether it was clinging or having no dignity, Song Yaoyao was the only one he couldn't let go. I quickly flew abroad. After staying with my parents for half a year, I ran away to live somewhere else. The housekeeper would send me messages from time to time, asking me to take care of my health while abroad. Occasionally he would chat with me and ask me about my recent situation, and his tone seemed like a different person. The system said, after analysis, there is an 80% chance that the person on the other side is Xinyan. I said, I bet 100%. When will you go back? Don't you see how Xinyan pushes the plot? I said, no hurry, he will come to the door himself. Then I stayed there for several months, until I saw Xinyan's recent good news in the circle of friends. The account received a sum of money, not more, not less, just the principal plus interest in the past few years. I told the system, it's almost there. The day Xinyan came was an ordinary morning. I was lying on the bed watching anime, and the system kept screaming in my head, "Where is the male lead? Where is Xinyan? Didn't you say he would come to you? It's been so long. Where is he? This is the last chance." I scratched my arm. "Give him some time, it's been a long time." The system crashed. I was about to speak when someone knocked on the door. I put on my shawl and opened the door, and the wind blew snow foam into the house. The person at the door had snow on his hair, and half of his hair was white. Xinyan had fair skin and a gentle temperament, like a young man from an ancient family. The system screamed for the second time, "He's coming." Xinyan lowered his eyes and looked at me. "Yao Yao." I slammed the door shut. The system screamed for the third time. "He came to apologize." "What are you doing? The reunion is just around the corner, and we will be together soon," I said. "I'm just a little unhappy." "What's unhappy?" "I was burned to death in my previous life, and I got cold water in this life. I have to bear all the sins." And he didn't do anything. The system was silent for a while and chose to shut up. This winter is very cold, few people go out, and people on the street are wrapped tightly in 3 layers inside and outside. When I opened the window for ventilation, the wind blew on my face, which hurt. There was wind and snow in the corridor. I went out for a while and went downstairs to throw away the garbage. Xinyan stood in the corner and watched me, followed me downstairs and up again. His steps were a little slow. He wanted to talk to me, but I ignored him, so he stopped talking. When the door was closed, he stood outside the door without leaving, his face red. I woke up from my nap and felt refreshed. The system alarm sounded in my head. Host, the male protagonist's vital signs dropped sharply. I got dressed and went out, and saw Xinyan curled up in a corner. The snow on his hair turned into thin ice, and he was about to lose consciousness. I took out my mobile phone to call the emergency number, and as soon as I hung up, my hand was grabbed by someone. The cold air seemed to penetrate my body. I shuddered and tried to shake off Xinyan's hand, but he held it tightly. I followed the ambulance to the hospital. Xinyan lay on the bed, and his body gradually warmed up. The system said, "Stable, stable, this is stable." I ignored him, yawned, climbed onto Xinyan's bed, and pushed him aside. The system was anxious. "Host, what if you really kill the hero later? He deserves it." When I woke up, I was imprisoned in someone's arms. As soon as I opened my eyes, I met Xinyan's dark eyes. He seemed a little happy, and the corners of his lips drooped before they rose. "Yao Yao." He lowered his head and whispered in my ear, "Don't be angry with me, okay?" I looked at him, and my voice was calm. "Are you really not afraid of death? What if I didn't save you?" Xinyan shook his head, and the hand that was not infused wrapped around my waist. He lowered his head and pressed his forehead against my forehead. "No, Xinyan should have died long ago." "Yao Yao." He buried his head in my neck, and his hot breath fell on my collarbone, and he bit it gently. The voice was a little crazy. "My life is yours. If you don't save me, I'll give it back to you." System, why do I feel that the hero is a little bit wrong? I met Xinyan's eyes. The dark circles under his eyes had not disappeared, as if he had suffered a serious illness, but I could vaguely see the gentle shadow of the past. I said, "Maybe." Then I punched Xinyan in the stomach. The strength in Xinyan's hand was slightly loosened, and I struggled out and fell to the ground. "I'm not angry with you. I just don't like you anymore," I said. "I have an appointment with a boy I like to watch a football game today, so I'm leaving first." Xinyan was stunned for a moment. I walked straight out. "Yao Yao." I didn't answer him, and he pulled out the infusion needle in his hand, without even wearing shoes, and came to pull me. The nurse at the door was stopped by me. He just pulled out the infusion needle himself. The cut on Xinyan's hand was still bleeding, and 2 nurses stopped him. I walked through the crowd lightly. "Yao Yao, Yao Yao, don't go." Xinyan shouted my name like crazy, but I didn't turn around. 26. The system asked me, "When did you make an appointment with someone to watch the game?" I lied to him. I only wanted to go home, so how could I have the mood to look for someone else? The system shut up. I played games in the hotel until I was exhausted. 2 days later, I went home and saw Xinyan at the door again. He learned his lesson and waited for me in the car. He came to meet me when he saw me coming home. I walked home and he followed me, like a round puppy, and didn't say a word. When I closed the door, his hand suddenly got caught in the crack of the door. I was quite strong. Xinyan's knuckles, which were originally distinct, suddenly became red and swollen. He said, "Yao Yao, talk to me, please." For a while, just for a while, I glanced at him and loosened my hand holding the door handle. Xinyan changed his shoes and sat on the sofa. I took out the medicine from the cabinet and threw it to him. He looked at me steadily. I laughed sarcastically. Are you still waiting for me to rub it for you? Xinyan lowered his eyes and twisted the medicine himself. The quiet atmosphere was broken by his words. Yesterday, how was it? Xinyan asked with difficulty. I thought about it and frowned. Rejected. I didn't expect him to have a girlfriend, and she's the captain of the school cheerleading team. I made up a story, and Xinyan listened with a distorted expression on his face. It seemed that he wanted to be happy, but was afraid that I would be sad, so he tried his best to suppress it. I asked him, are you happy? Xinyan shook his head. Yao, you are angry with me. You can hit me or scold me. That day, it was too dark. I didn't see clearly that it was you, but it's my fault. You can blame me, whatever you want. I slapped him without saying a word. The corners of Xinyan's eyes turned red, and the cold white skin made the contrast even more striking. There is a kind of beauty of abuse. My hand turned red. Xinyan lowered his eyes and held my hand, rubbing it gently. He also asked me, does it hurt? The system screamed again. Host, don't you still want to go back? Of course, but before I go back, I have to ask for some interest from my previous life. I changed my mind. I let go of Xinyan's hand and hooked his chin to take a look. Xinyan was obedient. I said, I found that your profile is a bit similar to that boy, but he doesn't like to wear this kind of business style. I lowered my eyes and smiled. Do you still want to be with me, Xinyan? He answered without hesitation, yes. 27. The next day, Xinyan and I flew back together. The housekeeper almost cried when he saw me and said that I had lost weight again. I changed Xinyan's suit into a set of casual clothes. It looks a bit like a big man. I told him to put his things away, closed the door, and locked him out again. Xinyan and I started dating again. There was no agreement. He indulged me. I was not short of money, so he thought of ways to make me happy. Things that cannot be solved with money are difficult things. Xinyan's mind is how to make me happy every day besides company affairs. I like him to do things like that boy. I said he loves playing basketball. Xinyan went to learn. I said he doesn't like eating watermelon. Xinyan never touched it again. I said he smelled like orange blossoms, and Xinyan sprayed perfume on himself every day despite the risk of allergies. As long as he did that, I would hug him and say, I love you the most. 28. 2 months after I came back, I ran into Lin Xiao in the mall. Her arrogance faded a lot, and she was more stable when she saw me. I greeted her. She looked at me, her eyes revealing some quiet meaning. You said you would quit on your own initiative. I quit. I laughed. Then Xinyan begged me to come back. Lin Xiao's chest rose and fell for a while, and her voice became no longer calm. I regret it. What do you regret? I regret that I shouldn't have agreed to your bed at that time. I regret that I shouldn't have let Xinyan contact you. I regret not doing it earlier. She said, don't torture him, Song Yao. I don't love him, and I know you don't love him either. Don't torture him, Song Yao. I looked at her and smiled. Our eyes briefly met in the air. Lin Xiao doesn't love him. I always knew. She used him as a stepping stone, a cushion for falling, and a scepter to highlight her status. You are the least qualified person to say this, but I promise you, when I got home in the evening, Xinyan brought me a gift, a limited edition rabbit doll newly produced by a foreign toy factory. I hugged him and kissed him, and Xinyan lowered his head and kissed my forehead. Then I put on my apron and went to the kitchen to cook. I slipped behind him to watch him cut vegetables, and Xinyan said, the kitchen smells heavy with oil smoke. Yao, you go out first. I didn't want to eat the dishes cooked by my aunt, so I asked Xinyan to learn. After learning, the kitchen became his territory. When I talked about it with my friends, they envied me and said that I had a good vision and found someone who was both capable and kind to me. I just smiled. Xinyan. I stood on tiptoe, hug him from behind. Tell you a secret. What? The system tried to stop me in my head. Host, why don't you stop talking? I'm afraid that we will become enemies after you tell me. I ignored him and leaned close to his ear. I don't have a boy I like. The knife for cutting vegetables fell into the sink. A bloody mark was cut on Xinyan's hand. He was stunned for a long time before turning around and hugging me in his arms. Yao, you lied to me. He cried and laughed like a demon, and kissed my forehead. Yao. I responded again and again. Yeah. Xinyan carried me out of the kitchen. The cut on his hand was still bleeding, and he didn't seem to care at all. Really, no, he murmured, confirmed over and over again. I replied over and over again. He pressed me on the sofa. The kiss fell on my eyes. He shouted, Yao, are you lying again? You want to make me happy, and then tell me it's fake, so that I'm happy for nothing. You want to punish me, whatever you want. Don't joke about this. Yao, only this. Don't lie to me. Warm tears fell on my neck. Xinyan buried his face and sighed. Please, Yao, I hugged his neck. I love you, Xinyan, I love you. Only this sentence. It is the biggest lie. Xinyan was stiff all over, and I pushed him. Get up quickly, I'll bandage your wound. He got up and followed me to apply medicine in a daze until the bandage was wrapped. He suddenly stood up and went upstairs. His steps were a little staggering, and I heard the sound of something falling in the room. Very urgent. Xinyan came downstairs with a red velvet box. Without a pause, he half knelt beside me. Yao Yao, marry me. The diamond ring in the ring box reflected the bright light. I squinted and smiled. Are you too anxious? Xinyan looked up at me, and the corners of his eyes were red. He said, no hurry, I'm just afraid, Yao Yao. I'm afraid that you will say in the next second that you just lied to me. Just think of it as a lie to me. He sighed. It's better to lie for a longer time. I put my hand in front of him and shook it. Then help me put it on. Xinyan's movements were a little slow, a circle, but it took a long time. Finally put it on. I sighed. It's quite suitable. Xinyan said, I measure it every night. He hugged me and rested his head on my shoulder. I know you won't agree, but I'm still dreaming that you'll forget that person one day. Prepare in advance, it'll always be useful. I didn't say anything. Yao Yao, Xinyan sighed, like a dream. I love you. The system didn't speak for a few days. Xinyan was so fast that he announced the successful proposal that day, and the next day he started picking a date, wedding photos, hotels, invitations, honeymoon, one after another. In an orderly manner, my friends came to congratulate me, and couldn't help whispering to me, you're a little too sudden. Why do I feel that Mr. Shen can't wait to set the wedding next week? I moved the tassel on the bag and replied, it's not sudden, I can't wait. The system suddenly said, I think it's a little too fast. How fast? Just, I feel that maybe we can stay a little longer and confirm it again, but I can't wait. I want to go home. The system shut up. Xinyan was very busy. The company's work slowed down a bit. He was busy with the wedding every day, confirmed the process again and again to make sure it was foolproof. This wedding was much grander than the one in the previous life. While Xinyan was on the phone with the wedding company, I was holding the yogurt bowl he made and watching TV. The background noise was a bit loud, and he opened the door to the balcony. I asked the system, can we leave immediately as long as we get married? Can we leave on the wedding day? After what procedure? The system took a long time to answer me. Probably, after exchanging rings. Really? Can I leave immediately after exchanging rings? I have to wait until your physical body dies. I thought about it. Then let the MC stab me directly. Will it be too bad? Then let the chandelier on the top fall down. Host, the methods you choose are so bloody. Dead people, how can it not be bloody? I complained. It shut up and whispered after a long time, do you have to leave? Actually, you can choose to stay. Xinyan loves you very much now, and your family background is also very good. You will be successful in everything you do here. You don't have anyone particularly close to you over there, and life is far worse than here. Song Yao Yao. It called my name for the first time. Stay, isn't it good? I finished the bowl of yogurt in my hand, and Xinyan came in after a phone call. Took my bowl and asked me if I was still hungry. I kissed his face. No, I want to lose weight so that I can wear a beautiful wedding dress. Xinyan's eyes sparkled. Yao Yao, it's not the wedding dress that's beautiful. You. I smiled and watched him carry the bowl into the kitchen. The figure disappeared. I answered, no way. 34. The wedding day was very lively. I didn't have to do anything the whole time. I got up, did my makeup, and waited for the show to start in the hotel. Xinyan couldn't see me, so he sent me a lot of messages. I yawned and replied to a few of them. When the show officially started, the lights in the whole venue fell on me alone. I listened to the MC reciting the words. His voice was sonorous. He told the love story between Xinyan and me in a lingering way. I didn't listen carefully, and could only catch a few words like salvation and only. The audience applauded loudly. The red carpet was so long that it made people dizzy. My father, who was far away abroad, didn't have time to come back, so I walked forward alone with my skirt lifted. Xinyan didn't follow the rules, and seeing that I was struggling to walk, he came over to help me lift my skirt. There was another round of booing from the audience, under the complex and dazzling crystal lamp. Xinyan lowered his eyes to look at me, and only my shadow was reflected in his dark eyes. I saw it clearly. It was very beautiful. Xinyan's eyes didn't blink, as if he was afraid that I would disappear in the next second. The MC was still reciting the words, and I looked up at the sharp crystal lamp on the top. The system was speechless. The MC asked, are you willing to make him your husband and enter into a marriage contract with him, no matter sickness or health, no matter poverty or wealth, or any other reason? Love him, take care of him, respect him, accept him, and be loyal to him forever until the end of life. I said, I do. The MC asked Xinyan again, are you willing to make her your wife and enter into a marriage contract with her, no matter sickness or health, no matter poverty or wealth, or any other reason, love her, take care of her, respect her, accept her, and be loyal to her forever until the end of life? Xinyan looked at me. The dark circles under his eyes faded a lot, and the joy in the corners of his eyebrows and eyes was like the spring scenery that could not be hidden on the branches. His eyes traced every inch of my eyebrows and eyes. Then he answered with great care, I do. I smiled at him. Xinyan also smiled, and took the ring from the flower girl and put it on me. There was no panic like last time. I took the ring and held his hand. Xinyan's hands were beautiful, and the redness and swelling from being pinched by the door last time had disappeared. Each knuckle was distinct, and I touched it twice more. I caught a glimpse of Xinyan's doting smile from the corner of his lips. I put the ring on him. Countdown. 5. The audience applauded. 4. The MC began to speak again. 3. Xinyan lowered his eyes to look at me. His eyebrows and eyes were shining. 2. I opened my mouth, and he leaned in to listen to me. 1. Goodbye. Xinyan staggered after being pushed, and the sharp crystal lamp pierced my body. The blood dyed the white gauze red. The scene was in chaos. Some people were screaming, some were crying. Xinyan rushed up and knelt beside me. Warm tears fell into my mouth. I heard him calling my name, Yao Yao, Yao Yao, look at me, look at me. I couldn't hear it. 35. I entered a room full of white light. The system's prompt sounded. The strategy mission has been completed and is leaving. There is a buffer period before returning to reality. Please wait patiently. I lay on the ground and felt myself floating in the air again. After the system finished reading the words, it asked me, Host, do you hate Xinyan? No. It hesitated. I said, don't you believe it? It stammered for a while before replying to me, a little cruel. I couldn't help laughing. In fact, I think I am kind enough. I remembered that day when Lin Xiao stood in front of me, her face restrained, and she faintly revealed some pity. She said, stop torturing him, Song Yao Yao. Why do you feel sorry for him? I asked the system. The system made a little noise and didn't say anything for a long time. You picked the person. I was the one who sat on the bench and couldn't wait for him to come home. I was the one who worked hard and paved the way for him. I was the one who didn't receive a reply but saw him shopping with Lin Xiao. I was the one who endured the burning of my flesh and watched my fiancé save another woman. I was the one who couldn't go home. I was the one who died in the sea of fire. I was the one who almost drowned in the cold water. I was even the one who was pierced through the body by the chandelier at the wedding. Xinyan no longer suffered the physical pain of debt collection, nor did he have to endure the cold eyes of others. He finished his studies safely and smoothly, and started a company smoothly, just because he couldn't get the love he wanted. Oh, that's really miserable, I sneered. The system didn't say anything else. The pure white space suddenly became quiet. The progress bar read to the end. The system suddenly said, I'm sorry, I didn't say anything, Song Yao Yao. It said, I wish you peace and success in the future. I said, of course. A dazzling white light flashed. The sky outside the house was bright. The sun shone through the window lattice, and the air was filled with the unique smell of cats. Migao slept with her belly open at the head of my bed, leaving 4 or 5 cat hairs on the pillow. She was still snoring softly. I buried my head in her belly and took a deep breath. Migao was woken up by me, and she crawled into my arms with sleepy eyes and found a comfortable position again. I lowered my head and kissed her cat head. The real touch made me feel at ease. I went home. End of the full text. Extra. Xinyan Chapter 1. After Song Yao Yao died, Xinyan was not sad. Time seemed to be rewound, back to when he was 18 years old. He knelt in the morning hall, listening to the painful and suppressed sobs of someone beside him. He just stared blankly at Song Yao Yao's photo. The person in the photo had a little smile on his face, but it didn't reach his eyes. Just like the few seconds when the chandelier fell at the wedding, she smiled like this, seemed happy, seemed very distant. She smiled. She said to him very calmly, goodbye. 2. Song's father and mother, who rushed back to China, stood behind him. Even the noble lady was so elegant when she shed tears. Song's mother's tears hung on her face, and she wiped them away gently with a handkerchief, but she couldn't wipe them away no matter what. When the couple left, they were cold and seemed unwilling to talk to him. The second before Song's father left, Xinyan did not miss his sinister eyes. The pain of losing a son must be vented through something. Xinyan knew that he would be the one to bear this anger. It was getting dark. Fine raindrops scraped on his face. Xinyan looked at the shadow of their car leaving, his face calm. If they really loved Song Yao Yao, They should have realized that she was no longer their daughter. 18-year-old Song Yaoyao died of a sudden high fever, when she was repeatedly tortured by the illness. She also cried and called her parents. She cried and asked her parents to return to China to see her. However, she was only comforted coldly. Mom and Dad are busy and can't leave. We will come back when we are free in a while. Yaoyao, you are a sensible child. Don't be angry. You are an adult. So Song Yaoyao, who died in the hospital bed, did not wait for her parents. I heard from the housekeeper that the hospital was ready to declare clinical death at that time. Song Yaoyao suddenly got better again. She just didn't speak, and the whole person was like a dull piece of wood. A few days after being discharged from the hospital, Song Yaoyao went out alone. The housekeeper was supposed to accompany her that day, but she refused. That day, Song Yaoyao met Shen Yan. It was like the wooden shell was injected with soul again. The housekeeper almost wiped tears when he talked about it. I am really grateful to you for seeing that the young lady can cry and laugh again. Shen Yan pursed his lips at that time and just smiled. At that time, Song Yaoyao was abroad. He stayed up late every day for official business. He couldn't sleep because Song Yaoyao was not by his side. The subtle differences between him and the Song Yaoyao in his memory suddenly spread out in his mind bit by bit. In fact, they are very similar, just with slight differences, but it doesn't matter. Shen Yan thought meaninglessly, as long as the current Song Yaoyao is his Song Yaoyao, it's fine. 3. The day Song Yaoyao was buried, the weather was bad and it rained lightly. Shen Yan stood in front of the coffin, and the person lying inside had a calm face, as if he was asleep. Shen Yan's fingers moved, and his fingertips paused before touching her cheek. He didn't touch it, but just helped her tidy up the hair on her cheek. Yaoyao, he whispered softly, I know, you're still alive. She left so calmly, as if she had no regrets. So love, just another lie. But, Shen Yan lowered his eyes. Cold liquid dripped onto the coffin. 1 drop, 2 drops. It hurt like his internal organs were twisted into a ball. He would rather she lied for a little longer. Yaoyao, he sighed, like a dream, I love you. 4. Shen Yan fainted after Song Yaoyao was buried. He didn't eat, drink or sleep for several days. And he was extremely depressed. His body couldn't bear it. When he woke up, Lin Xiao was by the bed, looking at him quietly with her eyes down. Shen Yan opened his eyes, but didn't look at her at all. Lin Xiao said, the dead cannot be resurrected. You should also let it go as soon as possible. The person is gone. Take care of yourself. She was silent for a short while, and then said, Song Yaoyao doesn't want you to be so decadent. No, she doesn't care. The room was quiet for a short moment. Lin Xiao suddenly said, I'm going to film in a few days. Director Shen Yan, do you need me to accompany you? No, Shen Yan interrupted her and said coldly, I want to be alone. Lin Xiao's face was a little embarrassed. She picked up her bag and got up to leave. Shen Yan watched her go without reminding her. Director Shen is a lunatic. In order to pursue the effect of the movie, he didn't treat the actors as human beings. Some of his actors went crazy after filming. Some went into the water alone in the cold winter and suffered from lifelong diseases. Some were disabled. The window in the ward was opened a crack. The wind howled. Shen Yan looked at the snow-white wall and sighed. Will you be happier? Yaoyao. 5. Song's father's revenge came quickly and fiercely. Shen Yan never thought of resisting. The declining market value made employees look worried, and many people secretly prepared to find another way out. Partners called one after another, saying, sorry, Mr. Shen Yan was calm from beginning to end. He worked hard to climb up just to be able to match that person. Now the person is gone. What's the use of these? After dealing with the termination of the contract, Shen Yan left the company. When walking on the street, the afternoon sun was high. Shen Yan stood on the side of the road, watching a figure across the street enter the small supermarket and come out with a bottle of water. She stood in the sun and looked up at the sun above. She smiled and said something to the person on the other end of the phone. Her eyebrows were curved. Shen Yan stood here and watched. There was a roar in his ears. His heart seemed to be rolled into a ball and then unfolded. He almost used up all his strength to barely stand. Exactly the same facial features, different hairstyle. She was taller and thinner. Her eyebrows and eyes were full, but he knew it at a glance. That was his Yaoyao. 14 days after their wedding, his Yaoyao was back. 6. It was not an illusion, but he could not catch it. Sometimes she appeared in the supermarket, buying some snacks. Sometimes she appeared on the street, holding her friend's hand. Sometimes in a certain community, walking her kitten on a leash. Sometimes, the cat was pure white, with heterochromia, like her, indifferently seducing. Shen Yan did not dare to get too close, so he could only stand aside and stare at her intently. She squinted her eyes and called her cat. Shen Yan couldn't hear her voice, but he could read the cat's name from her lips. Me, Gao, rice cake. She smiled with her head down, her eyebrows and eyes curved. The sun fell on her shoulders, making her skin white and transparent. Shen Yan looked at her, but his heart was in pain. You can see it, you can't touch it. 7 people in the circle said Shen Yan was crazy. When talking about his name, there seemed to be regret, saying that such a resourceful person has been mysterious since his wife died. He didn't even resist when he was targeted. I thought he would be a new business upstart, but I didn't expect it to be just a flash in the pan. Alas, what a trick of fate. Shen Yan turned a deaf ear and chased Song Yao Yao. Can't get close, just follow all the way, until he disappeared. But it's just a temporary solution. When I was still sane, I knew it was an illusion. Then, she was alive and vivid. When I got closer, I could even see her hair blown by the wind. Was it really an illusion, or maybe was it reality? You came to save me, disappeared. So when the car rushed straight towards the figure on the road, Shen Yan had no time to react. His body just moved forward subconsciously. At least this time, he didn't want to see her die in front of him. But it was an illusion. His body was hit hard, his internal organs were twisted together, and his bones were in pain as if they were about to fall apart. There were noisy sounds in his ears, one wave higher than the other. His body gradually lost temperature. But Shen Yan stared at that place stubbornly, until she walked farther and farther away, disappeared.